Hi guys, and welcome to Boring History Secrets channel. Tonight we stand together on a frozen plain just before dawn, your breath drifting out in pale clouds as the world holds its silence. You can hear snow squeak softly under your feet, that strange dry sound that only comes when cold digs deep into the ground. There is no cabin, no stone hearth, no orange glow of a radiator waiting to rescue you, and yet you are alive. Not barely alive either, but alert, breathing steadily, wrapped in something older than comfort and far older than central heating. You probably will not survive this, at least not the way you are right now, with your modern habits and your expectation that warmth should always be one switch away. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you are settling in, maybe drop a comment with where you are listening from and what time it is there. Midnight in Toronto, early evening in Sydney, a quiet afternoon somewhere warm where winter feels theoretical. Now dim the lights and let your shoulders drop as you imagine stepping backward in time into a winter that has no heating system waiting in reserve. You wake before sunrise because cold does not let you sleep long. It nudges you awake. Not cruelly, just persistently. The air presses against your skin, sharp but clean, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke from a fire that burned low hours ago and was never meant to last all night. That is your first lesson. Prehistoric people did not think of heat the way you do. They did not aim to banish cold completely. They learned to live alongside it. A mainstream historical fact slips quietly into the scene. Archaeological evidence shows that early humans survived repeated ice age cycles for tens of thousands of years, long before permanent fireplaces became common. This is not a mystery, just a reality that feels uncomfortable from a modern sofa. The cold was not an emergency. It was the background condition of life. You shift your weight, stamping your feet, feeling blood move. That movement is not an accident. Stillness is dangerous here. Your ancestors learned that warmth could be made inside the body as much as outside it. You probably think fire is the hero of this story. But fire is expensive. It eats fuel, demands attention, and gives away your location. In deep prehistory, fire was often used sparingly, saved for cooking, tool making, or brief bursts of warmth, rather than endless burning through the night. There is a quirky tidbit that tends to surprise people. Some archaeologists believe that certain prehistoric groups intentionally let fires die overnight, trusting their bodies, their shelter, and their shared warmth to carry them through until morning. It sounds reckless, almost masochistic, but it worked often enough to become tradition. You look around at the others waking with you. No one complains about the cold. Complaining would waste energy. Instead, there is quiet efficiency. Someone feeds a few twigs into the embers, coaxing a low flame, just enough to take the edge off the morning air. Someone else checks a simple windbreak made of branches and hides angled carefully to block the worst gusts. This is not comfort as you know it. This is competence. Historians still argue whether early humans consciously trained themselves to tolerate cold, or whether natural selection simply removed those who could not adapt. The debate is polite but unresolved, and you can feel it in your bones as you breathe deeply and let the cold settle rather than fight it. You notice something else. The cold here feels different from the cold you know. There is no damp chill creeping through thin walls, no draft sneaking under a door. The air is dry, honest. It stings, yes, but it does not linger. You realize how much of your modern discomfort comes from fighting environments your body did not evolve to handle. Central heating dries the air, confuses your senses, and leaves you strangely fragile once you step outside. A gentle sarcasm creeps in as you imagine explaining this morning to someone back home. No, there is no thermostat. No, there is no blanket fresh from the dryer. And yet somehow life continues. You bend down, brushing snow from a patch of ground worn smooth by repeated use. This spot has been slept on for generations. The earth here is slightly warmer than the air, holding on to yesterday's sun and the body heat of those who came before you. Even now, without realizing it, you are learning to read warmth in subtle places. Your hands tingle, then slowly numb, then settle into a steady, manageable cold. Panic would make it worse. Calm lets your circulation adjust. This too was learned. Children growing up in these conditions did not experience cold as trauma. It was normal. Their bodies responded efficiently, shunting blood where it was needed and conserving heat where it mattered most. You catch the faint sense, their movements and their expectations around cold. You take one last breath of the icy air, steady and slow, and begin to move with the others as the day starts. The story does not pause here. It flows forward, step by careful step, deeper into how bodies, habits, and landscapes work together to make winter survivable without glowing radiators or humming furnaces. You keep moving as the light grows stronger, and you begin to notice something about your own body. It is not shutting down. It is not begging for rescue. It is adjusting. Your breathing settles into a rhythm that feels almost meditative, and the cold that once seemed sharp now feels manageable, even familiar. This is where the story turns inward, because prehistoric survival in winter was not just about shelters or fires. It was about bodies that knew how to exist in cold without panicking. You roll your shoulders and feel heat bloom deep inside your chest, spreading slowly outward. This warmth is not borrowed from a flame. It is made by muscle, blood, and metabolism. A well-known historical fact slips in quietly here. Human bodies generate heat constantly through movement and digestion, and early humans relied heavily on this internal furnace. Studies of modern cold-adapted populations show higher baseline metabolic rates in winter, something your ancestors likely shared without ever naming it. You pause, letting your weight settle evenly on your feet. Your toes sting less now. The initial shock has passed. This is not magic. It is physiology. Blood vessels near your skin constrict slightly, reducing heat loss, while deeper circulation keeps your core warm. You do not think about it. You simply feel steadier. There is a strange comfort in realizing that your body is not as helpless as modern life suggests. You have been trained to outsource warmth. Turn a knob, flip a switch, wrap yourself in artificial heat until your own systems grow lazy. Prehistoric people did the opposite. Their bodies were the first line of defense. A quirky detail drifts in like a half-remembered campfire story. Some researchers suspect that prehistoric humans may have intentionally exposed themselves to cold during certain parts of the day, much like modern cold water swimmers, to keep their tolerance high. There is no written record, of course, but wear patterns on tools and seasonal camp layouts suggest people spent more time outdoors than comfort would strictly require. You imagine a child growing up here. No heated nursery, no thick walls keeping the world out. From infancy, cold is simply part of sensation like sound or light. That child learns early that shivering is not failure. It is communication. Muscles vibrate to make heat. The body speaks and the child listens. You flex your fingers and notice how dexterity returns once you stop fighting the cold. Panic makes you clumsy. Calm restores control. This lesson mattered. Dropping a tool in winter could mean wasted energy or lost food. Survival favored those who could stay composed when their skin went numb. There is an ongoing scholarly disagreement about how much of this tolerance was biological versus cultural. Some experts argue that genetic adaptation played a major role, pointing to differences in body shape and circulation. Others suggest that behavior and lifelong conditioning mattered more than DNA. The truth likely sits somewhere in between, and you feel that ambiguity in your own imagined muscles as they warm with use. You walk with the group, matching pace. No one rushes, no one drags behind. This steady movement is warmth. Your thighs and calves generate heat with every step, sending it upward. You realize that sitting still for long periods would be a mistake. Rest happens later, carefully timed and well supported. Your breath fogs the air in slow pulses. You notice the smell of frost and earth, clean and faintly metallic, Cold sharpened senses. Sounds carry farther. You hear a distant crack as ice shifts along a riverbank. You are alert, but not tense. Modern aside slips in gently. Think about how cold feels when you step outside from a heated building. The shock is violent. Your body scrambles because it has not been practicing. Here, there is no shock, just continuity. Indoors and outdoors are not radically different worlds. They blend into each other. You remember that the body loses most heat through the head and extremities. Without knowing anatomy, prehistoric people learned this through experience. They wrapped hands, covered heads, and kept feet moving. Heat conservation became instinct, not instruction. There is another understated fact worth noticing. Body composition mattered. People with slightly higher body fat had an advantage in cold climates, not as excess, but as insulation. This did not mean obesity as you imagine it today. It meant resilience. Seasonal weight gain was normal and useful. You glance down at your arms, imagining them stronger, denser, built from constant physical work. Muscle mass itself produces heat. A sedentary winter was not an option. Food gathering, tool making, and shelter maintenance all required motion. Warmth came as a byproduct of living. Some anthropologists debate whether early humans consciously understood their bodies as heat systems or simply acted through tradition. Did they know why movement mattered, or did they just know that it worked? The distinction may not matter. Knowledge does not always need words. The cold breeze picks up briefly, sliding under your hide wrap. You adjust it without thinking, turning your body slightly away from the wind. Micro-adjustments like this saved energy over long days. Facing the wind directly would drain you faster. You learn to angle yourself, to cooperate with the weather instead of challenging it. You feel a quiet respect growing for these bodies, including your own. They were not superhuman. They were trained, conditioned, and trusted. They were allowed to do what they evolved to do. As the sun climbs a little higher, you notice that you are no longer thinking about being cold. The sensation fades into the background, replaced by the rhythm of movement and breath. This is not comfort in the modern sense, but it is stability. You continue forward, body warm from within, ready to learn how everything else around you helped hold on to that heat. The ground, the shelters, the shared space, all of it builds on this foundation. A body that knows how to stay warm without asking permission from a machine. You feel it most clearly when you pause for a moment. Hands resting on your sides, breath steady. There is a gentle weight to your body now. Not heaviness exactly, but substance. The cold presses in, yet it does not cut as sharply as it once did. This is where fat enters the story. Not as an insult or a failure of discipline, but as a quiet ally that prehistoric people depended on without apology. You brush snow from your forearm and imagine the layers beneath the skin. Fat slows heat loss. It softens the boundary between warm blood and cold air. This is not speculation. The archaeological record and studies of human biology both point to the same conclusion. In colder regions, prehistoric populations tended to carry slightly more body fat than those living closer to the equator. It was not excess. It was insurance. You probably grew up hearing that fat is something to be burned away, trimmed down, controlled. Out here in this imagined winter, that idea feels almost comical. A little extra padding means you can sit longer, sleep deeper, and survive lean days when movement must slow. It means your body cools more slowly when the wind picks up. You think about food now because fat does not appear by accident. It comes from diet. Prehistoric winter diets were often rich and dense, heavy on animal fats, marrow, and organs that modern tastes sometimes avoid. Bones cracked open for the creamy richness inside were not desperation meals. They were prized. There is a detail that does not always make it into tidy history books. Some hunter-gatherer groups deliberately targeted the fattiest animals before winter set in, even passing over leaner prey. They understood in their own practical way that calories were not all equal. Fat burned longer. It warmed you from the inside out. You imagine sitting close to others, passing around chunks of roasted meat, fingers slick with grease. It smells rich and smoky. That smell lingers on your hands, on your clothes, and even in your hair. Later, as you lie down to sleep, digestion will do part of the work that fire does in your world. Breaking down food releases heat. Eating at the right time mattered. This is not romantic fantasy. Evidence from cut marks on bones and the distribution of animal remains shows clear patterns of fat processing in prehistoric camps. People went out of their way to extract every usable calorie. They were not glutton. They were planners. You feel the warmth spread through your core as you imagine that meal settling. It is slow, steady, and reliable. Unlike fire, which flares and fades, metabolic heat lasts through the night. This mattered when fuel was scarce or weather made fire risky. There is still lively disagreement among researchers about how intentional these dietary strategies were. Some argue that early humans simply ate what was available and benefited by coincidence. Others believe there was clear seasonal knowledge guiding food choices passed down through generations. The truth likely lives in daily practice rather than conscious theory. You shift your weight again and feel how the cold interacts differently with different parts of your body. Your torso stays warm longest. Your limbs cool faster. Fat distribution plays a role here too. Core warmth keeps organs functioning even when fingers and toes go numb. Survival does not require comfort everywhere at once. A modern aside drifts in softly. Think about how uncomfortable you feel skipping a meal on a cold day. Hunger amplifies chill. Prehistoric people knew this without needing words for blood sugar or metabolism. Feeding the body was feeding the fire within. Children learned this early. They watched adults prioritize certain foods in winter, watched elders insist that everyone eat before sleeping. It was not indulgence. It was survival etiquette. No one boasted about being thin when snow covered the ground. You imagine an older member of the group, face-lined, hands steady, choosing the fattiest portion for a pregnant woman or a growing child. Social rules around food distribution helped regulate warmth across the group. Those who needed insulation most often received it. This is where social history quietly intertwines with biology. Fat was not just stored under skin. It was managed through relationships. Sharing food meant sharing warmth in advance. There is an unexpected psychological effect too. When you are well fed, cold feels less threatening. Anxiety drops. Movements become more deliberate, less rushed. Panic burns energy. Calm preserves it. Full bellies supported steady minds. Some anthropologists point out that winter feasting rituals may have served both nutritional and emotional purposes. Eating together reinforced bonds while building reserves. You feel that sense of safety now, imagining yourself surrounded by others who have eaten the same meal, carrying the same warmth into the night. Your body, slightly heavier than a modern ideal, feels right for the season. You are not sluggish. You are prepared. The cold no longer feels like an invader. It feels like a condition you are equipped to handle. As you start walking again, boots crunching softly over frost, you notice that you are not shivering. Not yet. Your internal fire hums along, fueled by fat and habit. Fire outside may come later, briefly, but for now, warmth rides with you. You move forward, understanding that insulation was not just something worn or built. It was grown, eaten, and shared. And with each step, the lesson settles deeper. Winter survival began beneath the skin, long before walls or chimneys ever existed. You feel it the moment the group slows too much. The cold starts to creep back in. Subtle at first, like a polite reminder. Muscles cool, fingers stiffen. Someone shifts their stance, and without a word, the pace resumes. This is not impatience. It is understanding. For prehistoric people, movement was warmth, and stillness was something you earned carefully, not something you indulged in by default. You walk, and the rhythm of your steps becomes its own kind of shelter. Each footfall sends a small pulse of heat upward through your legs. Your arms swing naturally, not to burn calories, but to keep blood flowing. This is not exercise as you know it. There is no separation between activity and survival. Movement is simply how you exist. Evidence from wear patterns on ancient joints and bones shows that early humans were almost constantly active throughout the day, even in winter. This was not frantic motion. It was steady, purposeful activity, tool making, food preparation, checking traps, repairing shelters. All of it required hands and bodies to stay in motion. Warmth came as a side effect of living. You notice how no one sits down unless there is a reason. When rest happens, it is deliberate. People crouch close to the ground, knees tucked in, arms wrapped around themselves or others. Even resting positions are chosen to conserve heat. Stretching out flat on cold earth would bleed warmth too quickly. There is a small detail that feels almost clever when you notice it. Tasks are arranged to keep people moving during the coldest parts of the day. Early mornings and late afternoons are busy. The quiet moments come when the sun is highest. Even if it offers little warmth, time itself is managed as a resource. You imagine explaining this to someone used to winter weekends spent under blankets. The idea that rest could be dangerous feels backwards. And yet here, sitting still too long